We say hello to our dear guest tonight, senior lecturer at the Royal Air Force College and a former military intelligence officer. And we all know that there can be no former intelligence officers. Mr. Frenk Ledwidge on UATV English. Hello, Mr. Ledwidge. Hello.
Good afternoon. Yes, it's something of a myth, unfortunately, this intelligence officer business. I can absolutely assure you there are very much former military intelligence officers, and I'm definitely one, but
Yeah,
there we have it.
all intelligence officers I know say they exactly the same thing. So, isn't that strange? But
All right.
I don't know any. You're the first one, so I trust you. All right, so onwards to the questions. Well, American military aid to Ukraine and plans for the next Ramstein, all that is very important and necessary, no doubt about that. But you fall granted. Is this assistance enough for Ukraine victory without, oh my God, I'm going to say it, long-range strike permission?
No, of course not. And I don't think the long range strike weapons at this kind of scale that would be envisaged are either. So if I can deal with those now, the ATACMS, particular version of ATACMS, and of course the British Storm Shadow. The fact is that neither the Americans nor the British nor the French have stocks nearly adequate to the task of damaging the Russian war machine to the extent that it would be seriously reduced in capability. Now, that's simply a function of 20 years of neglect of Allied weapons systems and the displacement activity of Iraq and Afghanistan, which are totally pointless and silly, stupid, bloody messes that they were. But there we have it. As for what Ukraine is getting, it's getting, of course, a significant transfusion of important defensive weapons, not least, of course, another Patriot battery, one battery, 8 launchers. Certainly necessary. There have been losses, and that will replace those losses or some of them. So no, it isn't enough. It's nowhere near enough. If it were to be sufficient, or were assistance to be sufficient, the instructions and orders should have been given, as I've argued many times 2 years ago, for the vast stocks of ground weaponry, and to a lesser extent aircraft, to be released from storage, where they still remain.
What it actually takes to put an end to Russian military machine is the all allies and Ukraine together winning the victory, assuring the victory. Is that what you're saying, or what do we need to do, Mr. Ledwidge? Instruct us.
I think, to be candid with you, what we need to do should have been done years ago. And it's difficult to see now how the situation, particularly with respect, we're looking here now not so much at the battlefield, but the rather, or at least the equally important element of industrial power and industrial strategy. And the West lacks industrial strategy. And that has the impact in Ukraine, of course, that the kind of gear that you need is not being made. The instructions have not been given in Germany, Britain and France to rectify their own stocks, let alone have sufficient to help Ukraine. Those stocks do exist in the US, but the political will evidently doesn't, to be able to transfer the thousands of armoured vehicles and aircraft, probably dozens of aircraft more practically, but certainly they're present, just need the will to refurbish them, and other capabilities from those stocks, to release those stocks to Ukraine. And that order isn't even being given now. Should have been given 2 years ago. That way Ukraine wouldn't need to worry certainly about replacing losses, material losses in battle. But then, of course, there's a manpower issue, which you'll be more familiar with than me, to crew those weapon systems. But no, the West has been complacent. It continues to be complacent in its defence. The only country it isn't, of course, as you well know, is Poland.
Well, yeah, I would love to talk about the spheres of escalation, but let's put that as a topic of a separate discussion. Let's talk about Putin's nuclear gavel. If you want, waiving continues, and some say the West should react like Biden, for example, like with fear. Just keep the level of Ukrainian civilians dying steady. We want, here we go, we want no escalation. Some say the West should ignore that. There's all of Russian Satans and Sarmats, whatever they have, 6 or 7 can't even fly, So How should the West respond to this nuclear blackmail, or black threats? So these threats, what do you think?
Well, there's one decision-making body, not a decision maker, that counts here, and only one. And that's the Biden administration. The individual, of course, is non-functional, but the administration is functional, and it made a decision that there will be no risks taken, let's say, before the election. And that's for domestic political reasons. Your Starmers or Macrons are irrelevant to this. The decision maker, partly because the weapon systems that Ukraine requires, understandably, are or contain within them significant American components, and of course some of them are American in themselves. But Starmer and Macron are irrelevant. It's the Biden administration. The Biden administration is faced with a very tough election, and that's what drives this. Now, moving down the scale of engagement into the strategic military, there's some doubt, well, it's considerable doubt as to whether Putin would use nuclear weapons, but that's not really what's coded into this. What's coded into this are other options available. So, for example, a cyber attack on, let's say, Baltimore or Denver, Colorado, or Liverpool for that matter, but probably the West, Europe is out of this, would damage Biden or Harris's prospects, no doubt about it. The escalatory ladder to nuclear is very long, but I think the Americans don't want to get on that ladder.
I can't agree more than I actually am agreeing with that part. Yes, but Russian military depots and, the oil refineries are on fire constantly and more to come. So the Kursk is Russia no more. But Russia continues to push in the Donetsk region anyway. Putin said recently that all the goals of his criminal adventure in Ukraine that he calls war will be achieved by the anniversary of it, which is February 2025. So he thinks like to buy off some more of Donetsk Oblast today, so to trade it back for Kursk later. Why?
Well, conceivably, as far as Putin has set any identifiable objectives in the war, as you hint, that is Luhansk and Donetsk. And I seriously doubt whether Russia will be in any position to call that a day. And by February next year, on current pressure, but nonetheless, that's their objective.
All right. Well, today is the day of the defenders. I won't ask any more questions, but I will ask you one more thing. Can you please address to the brave defenders of Ukraine maybe a couple of words to encourage them?
Yes, you're fighting in a just cause, as you well know, and you're in a long tradition of Ukrainian and other nations' defenders in so doing, and you've got the support of your comrades here and in every other free country, and you know that, and if you don't know it, you should know it, because it's true.
Mr. Ledwidge, thank you so very much for your time and for your expertise. Again, I have a lot of questions, especially in terms of weaponry and everything, maybe next time. But this time, thank you so very much and hope to talk to you very soon.
With very great pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you very much.
Likewise. Goodbye.